This is a story worth talking about. Will the Saudi Arabia deal with the U.S. be coming to an end this June 9th? We don't know, but there's a lot of talk about what could be. So we're going to talk about that today. And it has a lot to do with this statement made on a Brown Cafe that Saudi Arabia might not be renewing the petrodollar agreement. With the link that takes us to the original memorandum conversation held at the White House on June 6, 1974, between Nixon, Kissinger, and Prince Fahd of Saudi Arabia. And the result of this discussion led to what we call the petrodollar system. And we all know how important the petrodollar system has been towards the establishment and the furthering of the U.S. dollar as the current reserve currency. And so the big question is, with all these developments of alternatives being formed and alliances and signatures being signed between Saudi and other nations, this leads to the major question: is Saudi Arabia dropping the petrodollar? Because we all know that this is the deal that keeps all the oil flowing. And as the world introduces alternatives, it puts the U.S. potentially in a tight bind. All right, so today I want to take a quick minute, share with you some interesting information that I've caught wind of on the internet. And I want to share my 2 cents on it because it has everything to do with the current Federal Reserve note that we know as our national currency, also known as the dollar. With all these developments, it definitely will impact us in one way or another. And it's something that this whole channel has been based upon, is rethinking the dollar. And that's exactly what the world's doing. So in this video today, my goal is to answer 3 simple questions. What are the potential global economic impacts of the end of the petrodollar deal between Saudi Arabia and the U.S.? And 2, what are the reasons behind Saudi Arabia's decision not to renew the petrodollar system if that comes to fruition? And 3, how does the Saudi Arabia involvement in the project mBridge reflect a shift in the global economic dynamics? And if you're new to the channel, my name is Mike, the host and creator of Rethinking the Dollar. And my whole goal with this channel is to get people to think beyond what we've been told, because we've all been sold a bag of goods that no longer lines up with the globalist narrative. And that's why everybody is rethinking the dollar and what it means to hold dollars head into this uncertain future that we're all experiencing. And if you're new to the channel, you haven't already. So it's also time for you to start doing the same. So let's dive into this. Could there be an impending expiration of the 50-year petrodollar agreement between Saudi Arabia and the United States on June 9th, which is just a couple days from now? If all this is true, it could mark a pivotal moment in the global economic landscape. This agreement, forged in the 1970s, requires Saudi Arabia and other OPEC nations to conduct oil transactions exclusively in U.S. dollars. This practice has significantly bolstered the dollar's status as the world reserve currency, and the potential termination of this agreement may unleash profound implications for the global economy and the dollar's dominance. So the number one question is Saudi Arabia officially dropping the petrodollar? As you can see from the article on the screen here, this has been in talks for years now. And it wasn't until most recently, when a lot of this technological advancements came about, utilizing distributed ledger technology, that this subject really began to pick up. So if you comb the airways, there's dozens of articles out there talking about the end of the petrodollar system. But then again, it hasn't happened as of yet. So what's the hangup is the next question. Should Saudi Arabia choose not to renew the agreement, we might witness a considerable reduction in the global demand for U.S. dollars. Consequently, the dollar's value could diminish, leading to more expensive imports for Americans and a lot higher inflation rates. The repercussions could extend further if other oil exporting nations decide to follow Saudi Arabia's lead, thereby further eroding the petrodollar's influence. If it comes down to it, with Saudi Arabia's reluctance to renew the petrodollar agreement, it likely stems from about 3 primary factors of what's really going on behind the scenes. And the first one is challenging the dollar's hegemony. You see, over the last decade or so, Saudi Arabia has been investigating alternatives to the petrodollar system. Notably, the country has shown interest in trading oil and other currencies such as the Chinese Yuan, often referred to as the Petro-Yuan nowadays, since China and Saudi Arabia signed a memorandum in collaboration on oil refining, and nations that participate in Chinese Yuan systems being able to redeem the renminbi for gold in the future if need be. This shift could potentially realign global trade practices away from the U.S. dollar. The next one is strained U.S.-Saudi relations. The relationship between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia has been under strain due to various geopolitical issues, including the conflict in Yemen and the murder of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi. These tensions may have influenced Saudi Arabia's decision to seek alternatives beyond the dollar. And next, because the world has chosen to be divided into 2 sectors, the Western Hemisphere and the Eastern Hemisphere, it's only natural that diversifying economic partners will result from activity like that. And Saudi Arabia has been actively strengthening ties with China and other nations, and most notably, their inclusion into the BRICS Union now plays a major role in their thinking long term. And this, for sure, will reduce economic reliance on the dollar. So the next question people should be concerned with is, what implications for the global economy does Saudi Arabia choosing to not renew the agreement, if that comes about, or the slow continual removal of dollar dependence out of their economy? Little does the average person know, the potential end of the petrodollar system has significant economic and geopolitical consequences. For decades, the petrodollar has underpinned the dollar's dominance in global trade. Its demise could signal a shift in the global balance of power, diminishing U.S. influence around the world. And if the threat of the dollar no longer being the standard concerns people, there's no coincidence as to how all this CBDC talk has picked up steam. Now that Saudi Arabia has joined the Bank of International Settlement, and the introduction of central bank digital currencies adds another layer of complexity. Saudi Arabia's recent participation in the Chinese-dominated CBDC cross-border trial, known as Project mBridge, underscores this collaboration involving central banks of China, Hong Kong, Thailand, and the UAE with the addition of Saudi Arabia, represents a significant step towards reducing the U.S. dollar's role in global oil trade. The project mBridge, which is labeled as a new frontier in cross-border banking, appears to be another way of adding alternatives to the complexity of the monetary system that is not centered on using just dollars. The Bank for International Settlements announced that Saudi Arabia's central bank would become a full participant. According to them, this project aims to facilitate cross-border transactions using CBDCs, which allows them to leverage new technologies to address the technical, old, archaic, analog system they've been running on for decades. With the inclusion of Saudi Arabia, a major G20 economy and the world's largest oil exporter, could accelerate the adoption of this platform for commodity settlements outside the U.S. dollar. And so now that the mBridge project has achieved the minimum viable product stage, moving beyond the prototype phase, the transactions on this platform can utilize the code underlying China's Yuan, which can be seen as a useful alternative for other participating central banks. And to take it even further, the BIS has also integrated compatibility with the Ethereum virtual machine, or the EVM, which allow other developers to utilize the Ethereum network to build into the network, which enhances the platform's capabilities. So now the mBridge is up and operational, centered around the Yuan and other alternative central bank currencies, including the Saudi Arabia into this deal now, at the same time that the Petrodollar deal is up for negotiations, would only lead everybody to suspect that there's some bigger plans happening behind the scenes that may not be made public this upcoming weekend. But we all know, based on all the information I just laid out here, that something's brewing, and or something has already changed. The world hasn't found out yet. So as you can see here in the red, these are already the nations that have something available for use by the citizens. And there we have in the green, they're in the research phase, and in the golden colors, they're in the pilot phase. And that means the U.S. as well. So as the CBDCs continue to be developed, eventually it's all designed to be interconnected or interoperable, as I've been talking about for several years now. And so having the capabilities of connecting all these networks together, being developed by the Bank of International Settlements, working along with China as a leader, lets me know that there's already been some shifts in the global monetary order. And the dollar's not going away, but it won't be the primary numero uno that the world is forced to use. Because based upon all the evidence, it looks like the payment structure internationally will be dispersed, will be more broader in use case. And at this current moment, China is leading the charge with the world's largest domestic CBDC pilot, which encompasses 260 million people and being used in a wide array, from e-commerce to government payments and a lot more. Now, the other emerging economies, including India, Brazil, Russia, are also planning to launch officially their digital currencies by 2026. The rebranding of the currency system is well underway. So, at the end of the day, what does all this mean? With the pending expiration of the petrodollar agreement and the rise of CBDCs like the Petro Yuan and the others, this will herald a significant shift in the economic order. Now that Saudi Arabia's strategic move into the mBridge project, at the same time the petrodollar is being brought into question, that just adds more speculation to the idea of the petrodollar system being less viable for the world to use in the days ahead. So, moving forward, we're going to see a lot more news stories about the petrodollar system as well as CBDCs. But when you put it all together, it equals or controlled by the same authorities that are the reason why the world is the way it is today, and how the distributed ledger technology, while being sold to the small few that build their hopes and dreams on Bitcoin and things like that, clearly is looking more like a distraction, while governments and central banks are building up their solution for the world system in the days ahead. So the question I'm going to leave you with is, as all these CBDCs are developed and eventually launched, you're going to have over 150, 160 countries all looking to get their population into a retail CBDC. Do you really think on the decentralized side, they're going to allow people to continue to race and have options out of their system that they're building without there being some type of disconnect or unplugging of an alternative to their global digital tyranny that they're trying to keep us in? Just something worth thinking about. But anyway, I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this matter. Drop a comment. If you found any value here or anything worth continuing the discussion, share this so more people can find out what's going on. Hit that thumbs up button. Hope this was of value. Looking forward to reading your comments down below, and I'll catch you guys later.